Thanks, Sophie. Tonight on BBC London. Still fighting for compensation, the son of an Acton sub-postmaster says the drama about the Horizon scandal has left his father a broken man. Also in the programme tonight. Dealing with sewage coming up from the ground, we're back in the Berkshire village, still dealing with the aftermath of Storm Henk. Plus,
with a 20-mile-per-hour limit now in force on more London roads than ever before, one study suggests the capital is the slowest city centre in the world.
And found in a London bin 20 years ago and now up for auction, the original Friends script from the episodes filmed in the capital. Good evening, I'm Alice Bandukravi. First tonight, the son of an Acton sub-postmaster says his father's life was ruined after he was accused of stealing money from the post office. Varchas Patel's father, Vipin, was prosecuted in 2011. His conviction was then quashed nearly a decade later, but the process has left him in poor physical and mental health. Jim Weeble reports.
For over 15 years, Vipin Patel was a pillar of the community in Acton, running the Acton Crown Post Office. But looking for a quieter life along with his wife, he became a sub-postmaster just outside of Oxford, where he then became one of the hundreds of victims of the post office scandal, accused of stealing over £75,000, convicted of fraud. The real culprit, though, the faulty Horizon accounting software.
What does your dad make of all this then?
So he feels vindicated again, but it's definitely not going to fix everything.
Vipin's son Varchas has taken up his father's cause, now in poor health. He was also a witness to the suffering his father endured from members of the local community.
They made posters of my father. One of those posters, it says wanted dead or alive, post office robber. If you find him, there's a £10,000 gyro reward.
And that was stuck up, what, on a lamppost or something like that?
That was stuck up on our shop door.
This morning on BBC Breakfast, Varchas was able to voice his father's questions direct to the Postal Affairs Minister, Kevin Hollinrake.
The so-called investigators within the post office, will they be investigated and prosecuted if appropriate?
Well, the answer is yes, if people are guilty of something that the authorities can prosecute them for.
Have you deliberately inflated that cash figure?
And it's down to this, the ITV drama Mr Bates versus the Post Office, which has seen this scandal blow up politically, with pressure building. This today from the Prime Minister at PMQs.
But today I can announce that we will introduce new primary legislation to make sure that those convicted as a result of the Horizon scandal are swiftly exonerated and compensated.
What do you make of that?
Well, the devil's in the detail, really. But unfortunately, until it actually happens, it won't really make a difference. It's just an announcement.
There's no trust, really, is there?
No, until it happens.
Rupa Huck, Varchas's MP in Acton, has championed their case for several years.
They had to sell their wedding jewellery. You know, for Asian people, that's a big deal. They had to do a false confession, literally, to avoid going to prison. Their lives are never going to be the same again.
Even though Vipin's conviction was overturned 3 years ago, he still has received no compensation. But this new focus has helped.
I can see my father's spirits have just gone sky high since the drama, because he now knows, well, nearly the entire nation now knows what actually happened to all of these innocent sub-postmasters, one by one. And they were all told, you're the only one. And so was my father.
Jim Weeble, BBC London.
And there's lots more information on the post office scandal on the BBC News website. Just go to bbc.co.uk/news and scroll down to the dedicated section. The aunt of Zara Alina, who was murdered in Ilford in 2022, says she's deeply troubled after allegations that Zara's killer, who was jailed, was caught having sex with a prison worker. Jordan McSweeney is serving at least 33 years at Belmarsh Prison. Well, our Home Affairs correspondent Sonia Jessup is here. Sonia, what more do we know about these allegations?
Well, Zara's aunt, Farah Naz, said that she originally learned about these allegations in April last year. There had been a story in the Sun newspaper, allegations that Jordan McSweeney, Zara's killer, just months into his sentence at Belmarsh Jail, the UK's most secure prison, had sex with a female prison worker. We're told that she wasn't a prison guard. Now, the prison service which runs Belmarsh says it's aware of the allegations, but says it can't comment further because there is an ongoing investigation. The Met Police says that in April last year, it arrested a 32-year-old woman on suspicion of misconduct in a public office, and that she has since been released under investigation.
And Sonia, you've been speaking to Zara's aunt. She's clearly very concerned.
Yeah, Farah Naz says that she is deeply troubled. She believes there are unanswered questions for the bosses of Belmarsh Jail. She says that she since has raised the matter with the Justice Secretary. And just to remind viewers that on the night that McSweeney murdered Zara, he was also captured on CCTV stalking several other women on the streets of Ilford. He went on to target Zara, to sexually assault her, to beat her, and left her for dead. Now, Farah Naz gave us a statement saying, "Why was a self-confessed sexually motivated murderer whose crime was nationally recognised for its brutality allowed proximity to a female worker lacking training and capacity for such situations?" Well, as I say, she believes there are unanswered questions and that investigation continues.
OK, thanks very much for that, Sonia. Lots more to come, including a treat for fans of one of the world's most successful sitcoms.
No member of the public was ever meant to get their hands on this. This is an original script from the TV series Friends. It's going up for auction here in Hertfordshire, but how did it get here and how much is it worth?
Now back to a story that's been dominating the news this week, the rising water levels along the River Thames. It's 8 days since Storm Henk brought strong winds and heavy rain to the south of England, but the after effects are still being felt in and around the capital. The good news is the picture is improving. There are now 15 flood warnings and 9 flood alerts in place in Greater London, with no significant rain forecast. But the misery isn't over for many residents in Cookham. The Berkshire village was virtually cut off by floodwater earlier this week, and now several homes have been left with sewage backing up after a pumping plant failed. Matt Graveling has been to meet some of those affected.
Days of dry weather have seen the floodwater that spilled from the Thames slowly recede. However, for some Cookham residents, they have been left with something far worse in its place: sewage.
I've not really slept since Sunday. I've been up throughout the night, keeping the generator going. It's off at the moment because we're talking, but that's been the only thing that stopped our house having sewage running through it. Same for our neighbours, so we've all just got generators and pumps set up just to try and get the water away from the houses.
People resorted to using their own pumps to get rid of the waste water that collected in their garden. And the reason for this overspill is because of the failure of a pumping station located just behind the houses. As a result, sewage backed up and it bubbled up through the manhole covers. Now, Thames Water say they apologise to everybody affected, and they're now using their own tankers to remove some of the sewage.
So every time there's a flood, this pumping station packs up. 2 years ago, we had a meeting here with the residents. Thames Water told us to go away, it's fine, it's working.
Well, it now isn't working, and residents were forced to make their own pumps, this one comprising of wheelie bins, boxes and planks to relocate waste into a field. Thames Water wouldn't comment on the council's prior concerns over their pumping station, but did say that it failed because flood defences failed and we should contact the Environment Agency. We did, and they didn't reply.
Thames Water told me that on the phone. She was almost laughing about it, that all the Environment Agency need to stop Cookham flooding. And then we had an Environment Agency guy on this road, I think that was Monday morning, and he's saying Thames Water need to stop the pumping station flooding, and they're just blaming each other.
Despite this flooding, the Lightlands Lane sewage pumping station and surrounding fields could soon find themselves joined by even more residents.
Within about 200 metres of here, there's plans for another 20 houses to be built on part of the floodplain, and further away there's another 200 houses to be built about another half a mile away. I think is that before you build houses, you install the drainage system before you start building any walls and roofs, and at the moment the drainage system is at capacity.
The pumping out of the pumping station continued into the evening. Residents here say how long it remains dry and operational depends on the flow of communication between a number of agencies. Matt Graveling, BBC London.
So-called attendance hubs are being launched in London to help fight rising levels of school absences since the COVID pandemic. The Department for Education has picked 9 London schools with excellent attendance rates to share ideas with others across England. Lakshmi Gopal went along to one in Acton.
I think it's really important to come to school if children can, because then they can have really good education that can help them in the future.
These model pupils are at Ark Priory Primary Academy. It's become one of the government's new attendance hubs, sharing with other schools its strategies for tackling pupil absence.
They range from ensuring that we call children that are not in school every single day to find out where they are and when they'll be back, to doing other things like in-school rewards.
How do you stop celebrating attendance from stigmatising children who've had to be off school because of sickness?
So what we do now, we celebrate as a collective. We look at each class, and I think that works really well.
Persistently absent pupils are classed as those who miss at least a tenth of their school days. In the last academic year, 1 in 5 pupils in England was persistently absent. That's twice as many as before the pandemic, when it was 1 in 10.
Some kids will always need to be off, but if it's mild symptoms, for example, of a cold, actually, often, of course, a child can be going to school. And before COVID, that's what would have happened. We just want to get back to the place we were before COVID, with less than 5% absence rates.
Of course, COVID hasn't gone away. But according to a recent think tank poll, some parents believe that learning under the pandemic showed that school isn't necessary every day. At this school, a closeness with parents is key, and, on the rare occasion, a very direct approach.
I've either actually gone to collect children from their homes and bring them into school, and other where we've had a staggered day into school. So they'll start with the morning, then extend to the afternoon, and very quickly extend to a full day. A lot of the time my conversations with parents are pretty much saying, what can we do to support you with bringing your child to school?
I love coming to school, and it's just a very nice place to be. If I don't come into school, I will not be educated.
I think it's important because you might miss out on some vital stuff.
I really want children to get encouraged by teachers, because if they don't come to school, then you just don't want to learn.
The aim here is to show children that the first step to school success is just showing up. Lakshmi Gopal, BBC London.
London's NHS has warned it will take months to catch up on the appointments and operations that had to be postponed because of the latest junior doctors' strike that ended yesterday. New figures released in the last hour show tens of thousands of procedures have had to be rearranged. Well, our health correspondent Carl Mercer has been looking at the numbers. Carl, what do they tell us?
They tell us it was as bad as they expected, and they warned it would be, because we know, don't we, the last week when the strike was on, the longest strike in the NHS's history, 6 days of junior doctors walking out, was in the busiest week traditionally for the NHS. And I've been looking at the figures that have just come out, and they show us that 37,000 hospital procedures appointments had to be rescheduled, which is a huge amount. And then you add that to the 25,000 that had to be cancelled or postponed in the 3-day strikes before Christmas. You then have a backlog just over the last couple of weeks of 62,000 procedures, which will have to be caught up on. And we also looked at the number of doctors who went out on strike, and this is interesting as well, because at the height of the strikes in Christmas, there were 4,500 went out on strike. This time it's gone up to about 4,700 at its highest number. So it looks like the strength of support is still there amongst the junior doctors. So as I said, it is going to be a huge task for the NHS to catch up, a question I put to the NHS in London.
I think I can say months rather than weeks. This was a significant period that during which appointments were cancelled, and we know we're still catching up from the last period of industrial action in December, so it will be months, I'm afraid. It will add to the stress, I know that, and again, I apologise. If people's condition gets worse, they should check in with their GP, or if it's an emergency, obviously contact the NHS, but our advice is to wait. You will be sent an appointment.
And of course, that will be a worry for people who've had procedures cancelled, and then, of course, the threat of potential further strikes.
Yeah, and some of these people who've had their procedures cancelled over Christmas and the New Year will have been cancelled for the first, second or even third time. So they will be desperately looking ahead. And as you say, there is no end in sight for the doctors' strike. We haven't had further action called yet, but we certainly have no talks going on between the two sides, and we'll get an indication tomorrow of how big the waiting lists are in London. Probably now about 1.3 million Londoners waiting for operation.
You'll keep across it, I'm sure. Thank you very much, Carl Mercer. Now, this may come as no surprise to anyone who regularly drives around London, but the capital has been found to be the slowest city in the world for motorists for the second year running. Analysis by the tech firm TomTom found it takes an average of 37 minutes and 20 seconds to drive 6 miles. It's pointed to the rollout of more 20-mile-an-hour limits as one of the causes. The Mayor's office says the study is misleading. Chris Slegg has been out in the traffic and sent this.
20-mile-per-hour signs are now a common sight. Mayor Sadiq Khan brought the limit into force on an extra 40 miles of London roads towards the end of last year. It cost cab drivers time and money. We took a ride with drivers rep Steve McNamara.
London is a vibrant, bustling city. We need to move around, and the simple fact is that 20-mile-an-hour roads on 20-mile-an-hour limits on roads like this, on roads like Park Lane, on the A41, the Finchley Road, on major routes, it's just wrong. The Mayor's made a mistake in bringing it in. He needs to recognise that it's a mistake and he needs to change it.
Jeremy Leach's campaign group supports the limit.
100 people die every year on the roads in London, 3,500 people are seriously injured. When you get speeds down to 20 miles an hour, there's a 42% reduction in the number of serious and fatal casualties.
The technology company TomTom analysed journeys in 55 different countries. They found the average time taken for a 10-kilometre trip in London is now 37 minutes and 20 seconds, making it, they say, the slowest city centre in the world.
City Hall has called the study misleading, with a spokesperson telling us
TfL data suggests that journey times on the TfL road network actually remain at similar levels to those in 2019, while analysis from around the UK suggests that lower speed limits have not increased congestion.
Enforcing the limit on main roads is what most upsets the cab trade.
Nobody would argue, let alone me, that the small residential streets, the side streets that we're passing now, of course they should be 20 miles an hour. It's absolute common sense. We're on the A2 at the moment. It's a dual carriageway, as you can see. It's 3 lanes in one direction, 2 in another. 20 mile an hour along here, especially during the early hours of the morning, it's just basically impractical to do.
Why do you feel that you do need speed limits, even on roads such as that?
So the Transport for London Road Red Route network is where 30% of the serious casualties occur. You cannot avoid reducing speed limits and speeds on those arterial roads. They're where people and vehicles interact. You've got to deal with those streets.
The 20-mile-per-hour limit is likely to be a key issue in the run-up to May's mayoral election. Chris Slegg, BBC London.
Next, going to hospital for treatment can make people feel anxious. So at the Royal London Hospital, they're using music to bring a sense of calm and comfort. Twice a week, they hold recitals in the reception. And for the 90th show, it was the turn of a remarkable young piano virtuoso, despite being born blind and with severe autism. Wendy Hurrell has the story.
Hello everyone. My name is Trevor Song.
Because of rare disease, I was born blind.
And voicing that introduction is considerably more difficult for a boy with severe autism than the music flowing from memory to hands almost effortlessly. Chapman passed his grade 8 exam with distinction when he was 11.
When he was 3-4 years old, we always take him to Disneyland because you get a lot of different sensory experience, the roller coaster and stuff. So one day he came back home and we have this toy piano at home. He's just tapping it, playing it randomly, and then later he played a tune that he heard from the Disneyland.
This performance is the 90th recital in a programme at the Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel.
Coming to hospital is often not a joyous affair, so what this offers is when people come in, they hear the music, gives them an opportunity to relax. We also have it up in other parts of the hospital as well, so staff do definitely benefit from it.
This was all set up by a former consultant at the hospital.
When words fail, music speaks, and we've had plenty of evidence that that's really true. So I think it does make a difference, and people have said to us it makes a difference to them individually.
There is no shortage of musicians volunteering to perform here and lift spirits, as this 13-year-old has done.
I play music to inspire people because if I can do it, you can do it too. I hope you like my music.
Wendy Hurrell, BBC London.
Now, when you hear this, it can only mean one thing: the US sitcom Friends, which for anyone who doesn't know was a global TV sensation in the 90s that ran for more than a decade. Well, you might remember the finale of season 4, the one with Ross's wedding, which was filmed and set in London. Now, 2 scripts from those episodes are being auctioned in Hertfordshire. Janine Machin has managed to get her hands on them before the sale.
It was one of the most popular episodes of one of the most popular TV series we've ever known. The one with Ross's wedding.
Ross. Take thee, Emily. Take thee, Rachel.
Around 30 million people tuned in to see Ross say the wrong name in his vows when the season 4 finale of Friends aired in 1998. But these episodes were unusually not filmed in the United States, but in front of a live audience at Fountain Studios in London. And now, an old ticket for that event, together with 2 of the original scripts, are up for auction in Hertfordshire.
It's just surreal to read it and to see it in writing, what you've watched on the screen.
Amanda Butler is from Hanson Ross, the auction house in Royston.
I had a phone call from the vendor who was selling something else at the time and said, "Oh, by the way, I've got a couple of Friends scripts. Do you think they would sell?" So of course I got very excited because I'm a huge Friends fan. She found them in a bin of the studios that she used to work for in the 90s, and she's kept hold of them ever since. I think she'd forgotten she had them. They're full scripts, originals, and they should have been destroyed because all the cast and crew were told to get rid of them so that the ending wouldn't be leaked.
Sorry, what?
It's the gallows, darling.
Where? The episodes featured Jennifer Saunders and Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, as herself.
Chandler. Hi, Chandler.
Oh my God!
It's Fergie, baby!
So what was it that made Friends so popular? Well, where better to ask than a coffee shop?
We know that they're our age and that they've got 7 to 10 years before they work out what they're doing.
They're all quite relatable, like you can see yourself in their position. And it's just sort of quite nice to see that.
I actually watch it every night to go to sleep. So it's kind of that familiarity because you know it all so well and it's kind of that feeling of home. I don't know, it's just, yeah, it's comforting.
20 years after Friends ended, some feel the style of humour and writing hasn't aged well. But the recent death of one of the show's stars, Matthew Perry, has reignited a worldwide passion for the series. On Friday, fans will have a chance to get their hands on a rare piece of that programme history. Janine Machin, BBC London.
Great stuff. Now it's the one with Chris Fawkes.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Alice. Well, we had a lovely sunset just a few moments ago. This was the setting sun around Tottenham. A bit of high cloud just lit up by the setting sun there. Today, we've seen quite a bit of cloud further north around the North Sea. And I suppose over the next couple of days, the question mark is just how quickly this sheet of cloud starts to move its way in towards our neck of the woods. It will do, but overnight tonight, I think for the most part, it's going to stay dry with mostly clear skies, and it's going to be quite a cold night. There'll be some frost around, particularly in rural areas, with lowest temperatures down to about -2. Now, tomorrow morning, we start off with a lovely start to the day. Clear blue skies, lots of sunshine, cold northeasterly wind with us once again. Here comes the cloud. As we head into the afternoon, that will start to move its way in from the north. So turning cloudier, but it will stay dry. Temperatures around about 5 or 6 degrees Celsius in the centre of town. That is below average for the time of the year. The average in London this time of the year is 8. On into Friday's forecast, where you can see the extent of the cloud sheet. It's moved in from the North Sea. Again, I suspect it will be dry just about everywhere, but it will stay pretty cloudy all day. And with those northeasterly winds continuing to blow in, it will still feel quite cold. Temperatures around 7 or 8 degrees Celsius at best, but feeling a bit cooler given those northeasterly winds. Beyond that, into the weekend, the weather stays quite quiet. However, in Scotland, look at that, northerly winds start to move in. Now, next week, as that colder air moves in across the UK, get an area of low pressure moving in off the Atlantic. Now, we don't know exactly where this is going to be yet. It could be that we see some snowfall mixed in with this. Snow maybe in Scotland, it could be over in northern France, or it could be in southeast England. If it does come our way, it could cause some disruption. So the main message at the moment is stay across the weather forecast over the next few days. Alice.
Thanks very much, Chris. Well, that's about it from me. We'll be back, of course, in the 10:30 bulletin. But for now, from all of us, have a lovely evening. Bye.